I'm actually fascinated to know, rather than asking you about the weather, which industry you're joining us from today. If you wouldn't mind in the chat and get the opportunity, just drop us a message and just tell us where you're joining us from today. That would be fascinating. Just give it another 30 seconds, get everybody in the room. Cool. Oh, wow. Amazing. Financial services. I missed some of those. Property, coaching, let's say distribution, financial services again. Wow, far and wide. Fintech. Excellent. I'll have a good look at those all later on. Thank you, everybody. That's amazing. I'm going to get started because it's 12 o'clock and I know you guys are all busy people. Thank you so much for spending your lunch hour with me today. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Nicky Foster. I'm a professional coach and I head up the coaching team for Coaching Focus Group. And I'm really delighted to be here with you today on my favourite topic of women in leadership. So we've got a 30-minute session planned for you today, and we've got a 15-minute at the end planned for questions. If you have any questions throughout the webinar, please post them, but post them in the Q&A section rather than the chat, and that way we can collate them all at the end and we'll try and get through as many of those as possible. So moving on, let's just have a quick look at what we're going to look at today. So first of all, we're going to just take a moment to talk about what we mean by women in leadership. I'm going to spend a few minutes just talking about my journey and how I've come to do the work that I'm doing today. We're going to talk a little bit about why we need to empower women. And I'm going to take you through my very simple 3-step toolkit at the end of the session, remembering that we've only got half an hour, so it will be a bit of an overview, but I hope it will be enough to give you something to take away, whether or not you're here thinking about your own personal development, whether you're thinking about the development of the team around you in your organisation, or whether or not you're just simply thinking about how you become a better supporter and someone that empowers the women around you at work and in your lives. Okay, so what do we mean by women in leadership? So for me, simply, it's about empowering and supporting women into more leadership roles. It's about reserving judgment and bias and supporting women in a way that will help them be at their best and be their authentic selves. Moving on, I just want to take a couple of minutes and tell you a little bit about my journey, because it's really relevant for why I've arrived at the work that I'm doing today. So I actually started my career in retail, and I spent 20 years working in retail, corporate, head office environments. I worked for 3 major international retailers and held a variety of commercial roles, from buyer to category director, in a number of different functions across stores and online. And the last 10 years, I worked at Tesco, and Tesco was a fantastic opportunity for me in terms of taking some time to really get clear about my ambitions and the role that I wanted to achieve. And I was very fortunate there because I was able to take part in lots of leadership programs, women in leadership, women in business, networks. I worked with a mentor, I worked with a coach, and I was really able to begin to articulate my ambition and the desire to work in a leadership role. There'd been a couple of moments earlier in my career that had really stuck with me. The first, when I was quite junior in one of my first roles, and I was talking to a senior leader in the business, and he'd said to me, well, it doesn't matter how good you are, you won't get very far because you're a woman. And I remember thinking, hang on a minute, that's not right. And then later in my career, I joined a team, and I was one woman in a team of 17 men. And I thought, this is going to be a bit different. I think there might be another way to do things around here. And therefore began my mission to perhaps think differently and think about how I could add my own style and my diversity to the groups of people that I was in. And Tesco became a fantastic experience for me to do that, and I was able to find my authentic self and start to become the leader that I wanted to be. I took some time out to have my daughter whilst I was working at Tesco. I took a year off in maternity, which was fantastic. And when I came back, I tried to work all different variety of working patterns, 3 days, 4 days, 5 days in 4. I tried them all, and I was trying to champion flexible working at the time. This was pre-pandemic, so that was pretty tricky. But I worked on, and one day, out of the blue, I was made redundant, which changed everything for me. On one hand, I was able to take some time out and spend some time with my daughter, which was amazing. And we had fantastic 2 years together, looking around in the soft play and taking some time with her. But on the other hand, everything that I'd worked for in my career and this destination job, this category director's job that I'd worked for so long had gone and had changed. And I felt like I had some unfinished business. I took some time out, and during that time I was reflecting in terms of what I had loved about my job and what I wanted to do next. And I decided actually that coaching would be a great move for me. I'd always felt really passionate about helping other people, and I'd always been a bit of a coach and a mentor kind of in the workplace. And I felt quite passionate about helping people, women, helping individuals that had talent but had been told that, they wouldn't get on. So I qualified to be a coach, and I ran my own coaching practice for 3 to 4 years, in which time I came to work with Coaching Focus Group. And I was really inspired by their mission, Coaching for a Better Tomorrow, which for me resonated in so many ways. Firstly, in terms of being a better version of yourself tomorrow and working on that with a coach. But more so for me, it was about creating a world in the future where my daughter could aspire to do any job that she wanted to do, where teams were more inclusive and more diverse, and she wouldn't perhaps have some of the challenges that I'd had around bias or judgment. And that in the future, if she wanted to start a family, she chooses to, then she might not have to deal with some of the repercussions in taking time out to do that. So for me, that mission was really powerful in terms of making a difference in the world. When I think about my reflections in my time in retail, and then my reflections over the last 4 years working with a number of women, there's kind of 3 major themes that come up. The first one was all around kind of clarity and having real knowledge into who I was, how I show up, and what I wanted, and then being able to tell people, actually, this is what I want to achieve. These are my goals. The second thing was about confidence and how confidence had impacted my journey, from joining my first role to setting up my own business, and the way that confidence shows up for different individuals. For me, it was mind talk, and some of us will relate to imposter syndrome, but thinking about how important confidence is and our self-belief in our own personal journeys. And the third element was about the people around me and the people that helped and supported me, and how I asked for help and support, and how I used that group of people around me to find energy on those tough days. So kind of those 3 reflections really stuck with me and helped me create my purpose today. I once came across an expression, which was, I heard somebody say it in a session, actually. It wasn't a particularly senior person. They said it was a bit of a throwaway comment. And I thought, oh gosh, that's me. And the expression was, you take the escalator as I climbed the stairs. And I immediately thought, oh, that just sums up the work that I want to do. I feel like I've had this really tricky climb. I've learned loads on the journey. I've put all the puzzle pieces together and made sense of some of the things I needed to think about to get to that role that I achieved. And actually now I want to help people step onto that escalator and go faster and faster and higher than I ever managed to. So that really kind of stuck with me, this idea of helping other women fast track from the learnings and the experience I've had in my own journey, and then working with them since to elevate them to those higher places. So hopefully that gives you some context in terms of why I feel so passionate and the work that I want to do today. So why is it important that we empower women? We know that more diverse leadership teams build more successful businesses, organizations, even countries. We know that teams that are more diverse deliver increased profits, they retain their colleagues better, and they have better colleague satisfaction. And actually, that's true of more than just women. So it's about building diverse teams. So I'm talking specifically about having more senior women leaders today, but there are other groups of individuals that equally need to feel empowered and feature more in those teams. From a woman's standpoint, there are two major challenges that mean that we don't have enough women in those senior leadership roles yet. The first is about the pipeline, and the second is about then keeping women in their roles when they get them. So firstly, the pipeline. We haven't got enough women coming through to a management level. So for every 100 men that are promoted, only 87 women are promoted to that manager level. So the pool of men is still growing and still much bigger, and there's just not enough women coming through the pipeline. The second thing is when those women do reach those leadership roles, they begin to leave. So for every one woman director that's promoted to a bigger role, two leave. And they're leaving because they're not happy with the culture that they work in. They're not happy with the level of well-being that's offered within the organizations and the businesses that they work in. And quite often, interestingly, it's women that take the role in those leadership teams of taking care of retention and taking care of well-being. They want to have more flexibility in the workplace. So 97% of women in a recent survey said that they wanted to work more flexibly, but were concerned if they requested working more flexibly, it would have an impact on their career prospects in the future. And 86% of those women also said that they felt they were more productive when they were working flexibly. So there's this real desire for a different culture that women want to work in, and many of them that are reaching these senior roles are moving on to do other things. Perhaps they're going to other businesses that are more aligned with their values. Then there's also a bit we need to think about in terms of what women need to get into those senior roles and to keep them. That's about giving them support through mentors, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. There's a bit about giving them the help and guidance and the confidence to be able to understand their goals and feel good about asking and telling the right people within their organizations what it is that they need. And then there's having the confidence to do all of those things. So the need for kind of guidance and mentors, empowering them to ask and tell what it is that they need, and the confidence to do that. So those together with this need for a change in the culture and the way that we operate, a more flexible and more values-led world, is what we need to do to then retain those senior women leaders. So this led me to create what I call my toolkit. It's very simple. The power of 3, or the power of C, as I said to myself this morning. So clarity, confidence, and connection. And I'm just going to take a few minutes to go through each one of these. Now, remembering that we've only got sort of 20 minutes left of the time. But I'm just going to give you a bit of a flavour for some of the things to think about in these areas. And hopefully there'll be bits that will resonate with you and you can think about as individuals or back with your teams. So the first C, clarity. So we must first know ourselves before we can offer our unique contribution to the world. Start with why. You've probably heard it a million times. Simon Sinek, you've probably seen the TED Talk or read the book. But I start with that because it's so important. It's something that we often forget kind of in day-to-day life. But that reason we get out of bed, that purpose, whether we are, paying the bills, we're saving for our children's future education, we are feeling fulfilled or giving back in the role that we do, we're playing our part in sustainability. But it's really important that we take time to connect with that purpose and what it is we're trying to achieve in our day-to-day lives, because that's where our motivation comes from. I like to say, in a coaching sense, do the work. And this is one of my favourite parts of the coaching journey with many clients that I work on. Do the work is taking the time to get really clear about the things that are important to you. So we start with values. So what's really important to you from a values sense? So it could be freedom, or it could be empowerment, it could be integrity, but really taking some time out to what those core values are that you hold true to yourself, that you just can't compromise on, that when things feel difficult in the day, it's probably because they're rubbing up against one of those core values. So spend some time really understanding your values. Spend some time understanding your strengths and the qualities and the things that you are really great at. Spending some time understanding your edges, the bits that you want to work on, the bits you want to learn, perhaps the bits that other people have given you in feedback that you think, oh, I don't quite see that. I need to do some work on that. So get really clear on who you are, what's important to you, and how you show up. And then when you start to think about goals, as quite often people have got goals that they come to coaching with, or goals in work, I want to be a bigger job or whatever, I want to get that next promotion, really taking time to connect with that goal. So another favourite expression of mine, begin with the end in mind, Stephen Covey, 7 Habits of Highly Effective Individuals. Again, another old one, you've probably seen it before, but I really love the idea of getting really clear about the goal you're working on, visualizing it, understanding how it's going to feel when you achieve that goal. For me, in one of my earlier jobs, I knew that I wanted to achieve a certain role, so much so that every day when I got out of my car and walked across the car park and through the front door and up the stairs and across the office, I visualized myself going into one of the corner offices. Sounds a bit of a cliche now, actually, saying corner office, but it was technically a corner office. And although it wasn't like on the top floor or anything, it was just a role in the corner. But I visualized that every day, and I thought about what it would feel like to achieve that goal, how it was going to feel doing that role, what things I would be doing, the people I'd be working with, the things I'd be saying. And at times where things were tricky or my resilience felt low, I used that goal and connected with that visualization to give myself the motivation to remind myself, this is why I'm working really hard. This is what it's all about. So taking time to really think about what it is you want to achieve, but why you want to achieve it. How does that fit with your purpose? How does that fit with your values and what you're great at and the bits you're working on? And then really connecting with that goal so that you can unlock that motivation to achieve it when you need to. And once you know that stuff, then you can start to really have impact in the world. So moving on to my second step, this one is all about confidence. And many people believe that confidence is something that you're born with and it comes naturally to you. I know I, for one, was very happy to know that it was a learned skill, and it really is something that you can work on and you can build. Does mean that sometimes you have to do things you don't want to do or things that scare you a little bit, but you can increase your confidence by taking lots of small steps and building your confidence up. It's important when thinking about confidence to first think about what it gives you. I will, when I feel more confident, I'm going to book that meeting, or I'm going to go and talk to that person, or I'm going to go and visit that place. And it's sometimes people hold fire, they don't take action because they are waiting to feel more confident, waiting for things to feel more perfect before you can move forward and take that step. And actually taking small steps, marginal gains, are what help you to feel more confident. It's taking those small actions that then build your competence, that then build your self-belief, that then build your confidence, which then help you take the next small steps, which build your confidence. And you can see it's cyclical in terms of improving your confidence and having a really clear action plan around, okay, this is my goal, this is what I'm working on to achieve. I know how it's going to feel when I get there because I've done that work. And now what are the steps that I need to take to feel more confident and achieve that goal? And then facing into what's holding me back. What are the stories that I'm telling myself? What are those limiting beliefs that I hold? I'm not good enough to go into that meeting. Everybody's going to be smarter than me. Everybody's much better than numbers. Oh gosh, I can't present with all those people in the room. And the narrative and the mind talk and the stories that we tell ourselves that hold us back from starting. And there's a bit for me about confidence in owning it, in just to facing into that many of us, in fact, 78% of women say that mostly regularly, they don't feel confident, and facing into the fact to say that's okay actually not to feel confident. This is something we can work on. This is something we can learn, and we can take small steps to build our confidence and work towards our goals. And then finally, connection. So this is a really important one, and took me a long time to kind of figure out. I used to think having a good network was having lots of LinkedIn connections, and I thought, oh, I've got 1,000 connections, I've got a great network. And actually, when I came to need it, and when I started my own business and I began to reach out with people that I'd worked with and I thought had a good expectation of me because we worked together, I didn't hear back from. And I think back to some of the days when some of my peers used to be great at networking, and they'd say, where are you going? And they say, I'm going to network today. And I think, what are you doing? And they go and they'd meet connections, and they'd invest time in spending time and helping others that perhaps they might need to call on in the future. At the time I thought, I'm too busy to do that. I don't time to talk to people. I don't know who I'm going to need in the future. And actually I see now actually that keeping those relationships and laying those foundations then can be really helpful in the future when you need your network. So some thoughts around that. And then also I've called it strategic support. So being really smart about the people that you work with as mentors and as coaches. So do a SWOT analysis: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. Think about the bits you want to work on and the things you want to learn, and go and find mentors that will help you with those things. And know when you turn up and ask those mentors to mentor you, what's in it for them? What are you going to give back as part of this relationship? What are they going to learn from you? What do you want from them? And women also, don't underestimate the power of having a male mentor. Research actually shows that relationships can go from being helpful to really impactful when women work with men. So yes, there's role models that we need in women, but yeah, let's use our male colleagues as well. They can be really great mentors. Find your tribe for me is about the people that you surround yourself with, and the need to have people that will give you energy and will fill your cup on those tough days. I think about when I was getting started in my coaching practice, and the other coaches I'd done my training with that I called on to say, nobody likes my posts, nobody phones me back, and we were, those shared experiences, good and bad, that you have together with similar like-minded people are so important, and celebrating those successes together and feeling those lows together as well. You need to surround yourself with a group of people that give you energy and fill you up. And that might not be the team of people you're working with. It might be that you need to go and find that group of people and learn and support and grow together. We rise by lifting others. So all too frequently when I was growing up, I used to see perhaps some of the women that had made it and were in those leadership roles being criticised by others. And I think a lot of that has changed, but it's so important that we support other women around us, that we stand together and we support each other, and we know that we rise by lifting others. So coming towards the end of the time, so if you are thinking about what's next for you as an individual or as part of your organization, and we've had a really short amount of time to give you a bit of a whistle stop tour today of some of the things to think about, and I hope that some of those were helpful for you. But if you are a business or an organization and you're thinking about what's next, then I'd be happy to have a chat with you about what you might want to think about. And if you are an individual and you like what you heard, and this is obviously a really, really short, concise version of what would feature in our longer open program, which will be over the course of 4 months, where we're going to delve into all of that stuff in a lot more detail, then yeah, we'd love to hear from you. In a minute you'll have my contact details, and you can find out a little bit more. But I hope that's been super helpful for you as a few things for you to begin to think about. I would love to know in the chat any bits that resonated with you and things that you would will be taken away from today, or perhaps the do next or the actions. And also, if you've got any questions, please fill them into the Q&A section, and we will have a quick look and see what questions we've got coming, and I'll see if I can do my best to answer those, I'm just going to have a quick look. So there's a big rush on the questions now, and I realise that, yeah, I can't see them. But I would love to know your takeaways, if there's anything that's resonated with you particularly that you think, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I'm thinking about that moment. I'm thinking about what's next for me, and I'm just gonna, take some time to really think about my purpose and what I want from my next role, or reconnect with my values, or I really don't feel confident about this new job I'm going for, and I'm going to think about that idea of taking kind of small steps to build my confidence, and those small actions that you can do to build and make you feel more confident. Yeah. Gonna check the questions. Okay. Oh yeah, this is a good one. How do you handle career progression, knowing you will want to have a maternity break? Yeah, that's a tricky one, isn't it? I think for me, that is all about having the clarity and knowing what you want and finding the right people to tell them what you want. So I was working with somebody actually recently from a coaching standpoint, and she said, I've made it so far in this role, and I'm going to go off on maternity leave, and when I come back, I want to get that promotion, and I'm ready for it, and it's not going to deter me. And actually it was about, let's think about how you find the right person in your organization, who was her male director, and you're really clear about what you want, and you go and say, and you tell them, yeah, I am going on maternity leave, but this doesn't mean that I don't want such a big job. I want to come back, and I still want that promotion that I'm in the pipeline for. And you're just really clear about that, and you find the confidence to do that. I mean, it was a long time ago, right? But Sheryl Sandberg said it, didn't she, in one of the very first TED Talks on the topic of women in leadership, which was about, don't leave before you leave. And often what happens is people think, I'm going on maternity leave, so I'm not going to be considered, or I'm not going to be clear about what I want. But my advice would be, you kind of carry on and get really clear about what you want, and make sure the right people know, so that you can come back and pick back up right where you left off. And with increasing flexibility in the workplace, I mean, we've come so far since the pandemic in being able to at least approach flexible working conversations, that hopefully things will start to become easier for people coming back to work. But I'd say that in a nutshell, you've got to be clear about what you want, and you've got to tell the people that can make a difference and make that decision for you. Let's have a look. How do we know if a leadership role is the right path for us? It's an interesting one. So so I guess for me, it's about connecting back with that purpose and those values, and trying to fast forward to, okay, start with the end in mind. This is the goal. Is this what I want to do? And if I've got this leadership role, how's it going to feel? What am I going to be doing? What am I going to be thinking with? What does that give me? And trying to connect with whether that's what resonates with you. Many women, perhaps in certain industries, feel that they need to be on the journey towards leadership. It doesn't necessarily be that you need to take a leadership role. Equally, there might be others that do the work and get clear about what they want, and realize, actually, a leadership role would really, really suit me. If I can be my authentic self, and I can share my beliefs and my goals and my ambitions, then that might be the right thing for me. And often women don't feel confident to say it, because they think people are going to judge them because they've said they want a leadership role. But it doesn't have to be for anyone. But I'd say to that question, do the work, do the thinking, get clear about what it is you want, where you want to be, what you want to achieve, and see how that shows up with being a leader. I'm just going to see, I've got so dots here now. Let's have a look. This is a long one. Hang on, just a minute. Yeah, so a couple of questions about where the data has come from and information, which I'll just share. So there's two amazing reports out there at the moment. One is a Deloitte study from last year, and one is a McKinsey, which I'm sure we can share somewhere in the notes that follow. There's heaps of statistics around pipeline and women and challenges. So I've quoted a few of the numbers from those today, but there's, you know, the whole deck that you could have a look at. Hopefully that helps. But I mean, there's heaps of stuff out there now. Oh, if you knew you couldn't fail in your career ambitions, what would be the thing you'd change that would give you more clarity, confidence, and connection? Oh, that's a good question. Do you know, I was one of the questions that a friend of mine who's a coach we often talk about, which was, you know, if we had ultimate confidence when we were more junior in our career, like confidence is our superpower, what would we be doing now? And if, you know, if you were 20 and you had unstoppable confidence, what would you be doing? Or when you were 30 or whatever. And it's a fascinating thread to kind of to think through in terms of, oh my gosh, what would you be doing? But I guess if I knew I couldn't fail in my career ambitions, for me, it would be about having that clarity and that impact earlier on, and being brave enough to say, this is what I want to do, and I want to make a difference, and I just want to be me, and I don't want to do it necessarily the way that I feel like I need to do it. You know, often you see, particularly women, I saw growing up, that women had to adapt themselves to fit in with what was still a male energy environment to work in. And even though there were women in leadership roles, I never really felt like they were 100% their authentic selves. And actually the ones that did feel like they were their authentic selves were, as you know, the ones that were at their best, and they were the ones that had the best connection with individuals. They were the ones that had the best confidence. So I'd say it's about having that clarity of who you are, and then not being afraid to really to say it. And I think, gosh, yeah, thinking back to my early career, for a long time I would think, oh, I wish I could do that differently, or I wouldn't do it like that, or if somebody just tapped me on the shoulder and gave me the opportunity, then I could do that. But yeah, I probably didn't have the confidence to do that. So hopefully that answered the question. That's a very thoughtful one. Oh gosh, book recommendations. My gosh, there's many of those. So one that I alluded to a little bit was Atomic Habits, which is about doing lots of small things to have a really big impact, that idea of marginal gains. And I think there's a statistic in there: if you get 1% better at something every day, by the end of the year you'll be 37% better at that thing by the end of the year. So that's a good one. James Clear. There are some other ones that I probably need to remember. What got you there won't get you here. There's a couple along those lines for thinking about something that I see often with women, which is about, you know, you kind of grow up as a young girl and you're told, be nice, be helpful, be polite, be quiet, look pretty. And you go through school and you're told, you know, do a good job, work hard, be academic, fit in, and you get to work and you do well because you're great at what you do. And often to reach those bigger roles in leadership, you have to change your behavior a little bit. And sometimes women get a bit stuck on, well, I'm doing a great job and everyone's telling me a great job, but they're just not considering me for those big jobs. So and that was one of the books that could be quite helpful. How Women Rise. I need to give that some more thought in terms of some of the other ones. Let's see, how are we doing? How do we change the nature of the pipeline to include female dominated roles, e.g. the CPO, the Chief Marketing Officer? Yeah, so how do we change the nature of the pipeline to include more female dominated roles? So that's a comment masked as a question. Yeah, so thinking about how do we empower women. I mean, for me, it is all about, my ambition would be about empowering people at a much junior age in their career to give them the clarity and the confidence and the connections so that they can go forward in their careers. And by the time they've reached those leadership roles, they've already got that sense of authenticity, they've got that sense of clarity and confidence. Quite often what I've seen is people do well and get promoted into a role because of the great job that they've done, and then they become a leader and they haven't always had the opportunity to connect with who they are and how they show up and what they bring in the way that they could have done. So I think it's about really helping individuals at a much more junior age in their journey, so that you can then support those individuals become the next CPO. And if you had a group of young women that had those ambitions and knew that nothing could hold them back, then yeah, maybe they wouldn't have the bias or the limiting beliefs that stop them thinking, yeah, I can be a CPO in a technology company or whatever. Yeah. Oh, do you have any tips for helping to overcome a drop in confidence following the setbacks? Yeah, so I think and that happens a lot, right? People have a bad meeting, or they have a bad interview, and that really knocks them in terms of their confidence. And for me, that comes back to being quite reflective about what happened and thinking about why, what happened in the circumstances. If it's about a setback in terms of potentially not getting the job, it goes back to kind of, thinking about, well, what was I missing? What was the feedback I got? What could I work on as part of that? And building back up with those really small steps, and knowing that all of these little things that you can do are going to make a difference to getting you back to a place where you feel confident. So if it was preparing for an interview, perhaps it's thinking about the reflections of the bits that didn't perhaps go well, and then taking those small steps to do all of the things that then can rebuild that confidence in some ways. I think whenever there's a knockback or something that doesn't go your way, it's an opportunity to really connect with whether or not you really wanted it and it was right for you, and why you've had that feedback. So again, I just encourage you to come back to that kind of reconnecting with, how does it show up versus my values, versus my purpose, versus the goals that I've got. Yeah, what was the one bit of advice that you would give other women that you wish you knew when you grew through your journey? Yeah, I guess that would just be overwhelmingly just self-belief. Like, just know that you can. There's all the work that you can do to understand what it is you want to do, but that kind of unstoppable belief that you can achieve whatever you want to achieve, and something that I'm guilty of as a parent of an 8-year-old daughter, that kind of, you can be anything you want to be, you can achieve it, because I really do believe that you can. It doesn't mean to say it's not going to be hard work, and it doesn't mean to say that it's not going to make you feel uncomfortable. You don't have to do difficult things, but that self-belief that if you set your mind to it, you visualize that goal and you do the work, you can absolutely achieve anything you want to achieve. Please can you share the recording? Yes, I can answer that one easily. It's going to come out on a email to you, I believe, later on today or tomorrow. Just having a look and see if I've missed any, because I've whizzed down a little bit. Let me have a look. There's the slide. So while I just check to see if I have missed any, there's a couple about like starting your own business, and challenges specifically about being a woman. I guess that really, that talks to me about about self-belief and about clarity of message. I think that was the big takeaway for me when I was getting started, is I didn't really know what I was asking for, in terms of, I kept asking people to help me by giving them a moment. Can I have 5 minutes of your time to talk about this? And the more clarity I found in the proposition and the business I was running, the more impact I had and the more success I had. So there's a bit for me about getting that clarity when you're setting up something new, and being really clear about reasons to believe those people that you're talking to. And the main thing really for me was about self-belief, and just realizing that you can do it, and making it happen. So here is the slide, the last slide. My details are on there, so if anybody would like any more information, if you are an organization and you're thinking about what's next in terms of women in leadership, then please give me a shout. I'd be very happy to chat about how we might work together. If you're an individual and you'd like to do some of this work for yourself as part of a mixed cohort, a combination of one-to-one coaching, group action learning sets, masterclasses on topics such as imposter syndrome, or calm your inner critic, or confidence, then we've got a fabulous program that launches in January, which I'd be happy to tell you about. I'm just going to have a final look to see if I've got any other questions. I'm so sorry if I've missed any of them. Best ways to connect with others when moving through university and beyond. Gosh, university was a long time ago for me now, in terms of probably a bit disconnected, because when I was that age, I don't think we had social media and everything in the same way that we do today. But I guess I just encourage you, anything to do with networking, just to be mindful of the relationships you're creating and how you can be helpful, and how you can keep those connections authentically, without them feeling forced, but genuine ways to connect and help other people in your network. So it might be, you've seen an article on something somebody's studying, or you've watched something on telly or whatever, and you might say, oh, I saw this and thought of you, this resonated with me and I thought it might be helpful. So it's just finding those ways to keep in contact with that network, and then when you come to think about the things that you want to work on for yourself, using that network to find the individuals that might be able to help. And it's a case of, well, what's in it for them as well. So if I'm going to ask you to support me in mentoring in sales skills, because I want to learn a bit more of that for the job I'm doing, then what's in it for the person that you're asking to mentor? So in a way, you need to be quite strategic about that network, because you do want to try and keep people in it. They're going to be able to help you with the stuff that you need to know, but you also need to give something back as well. It can't just be a two-way thing. So think about how kind of helpful you are, and what you offer to your network and in that group. And of course, if you're thinking about women coming together, I mean, that to me is something that's really empowering, in terms of in your organization, in your workplace, how you can bring groups of women together. It doesn't necessarily have to be on a program, but actually there's so much success that comes from groups of like-minded women that are on a similar journey, coming together and sharing their challenges and their struggles and their successes, because quite often another person in the room or in the group or whatever can really support you and answer that question, and they're going through something similar or have been something similar. So I see it all the time in terms of sessions where we facilitate groups of people coming together, and they create their own network and they learn and grow and share together, which is fantastic. And it comes back to that kind of point of lifting others and learning and growing together. So I think I'm just going to have another quick look. Thank you for bearing with me while I look for all these questions. I've got to say, chat box is probably not my strong point today. I think I've got them all. I'm just going to go back to the bottom. Last one. How can we support others by combating their limiting beliefs and encourage them to put themselves forward for opportunities? Gosh, that's a good one. So yeah, limiting beliefs is a whole other topic, but limiting beliefs, for those of you that haven't heard the expression, is like something that we're telling ourselves, or something that we're holding on to, or something that we have potentially grown up with, or we've learned in the workplace that we tell ourselves, that stops us moving forward. So for me, overcoming limiting beliefs is first about connecting with those limiting beliefs, really being clear about what they are, how they show up, what the triggers are. Do they come out when you're in certain situations? Do they come out when certain things trigger you, as in, feeling a bit stressed or feeling a bit tired? Okay, it's on those days that I tell myself I'm really not good enough. Or when I go to that meeting with those particular people, I tell myself, gosh, I'm not smart enough to be in the room. So kind of spending some time really understanding what they are and when and how they show up. And there is actually some work you can do, which you probably don't have time to go through today, in terms of how you can reprogram some of your thinking to deal with those things better. And then if you're thinking in the sense of helping others to put themselves forward for their opportunities, I guess it's thinking about how you make sense of that insight and support them on their journey, understanding that just because they're telling themselves they're not smart enough to go in the room, do you know that to be true? That isn't actually a fact necessarily, and helping them rebuild their confidence in those small steps. So again, it comes back to what are all the little things that you can do working towards that situation or that event, that somehow there's some limiting belief that's making that really challenging for you. So probably not the best short answer, because it's quite a big subject, and actually I think the whole masterclass just on limiting beliefs, because it's something that really stops people in their tracks. And there's these things that we tell ourselves from a young age that when we begin to unpick them in coaching, we realize, gosh, that has been holding me back, and I've stopped myself speaking in a meeting or behaving in a certain way because someone told me something. I mean, only the other day I was in a coaching session, and we were talking about an individual that a very senior person in the business told her there was a certain way they needed to present her work, and she spent the rest of her career thinking that she had to do something a certain way, and it was holding her back from being her authentic self in the style in which she did it. And then when she reconnected with that individual many years later, it's like, I don't remember saying that wasn't important. And sometimes we hold on to those small things, those throwaway comments, and we start to believe them to be true, and they can shape the way that we then behave. So it's about kind of looking at those beliefs and thinking, hang on a minute, what do I know to be true, and how can I reprogram my thinking so that I don't have this level of mind talk or whatever that surrounds this belief. Hopefully that kind of answers the question. Thank you. Right, I think we are at time. Thank you everybody who has stayed on to the end and answered the questions. I hope that it's been a useful session. I would love to know in the chat if there's one thing that's resonated with you, what it was. Find me on LinkedIn, drop me a message. My contact details are there. It's been really great to spend the last 45 minutes with you all. And thanks very much for coming along.